Awesome. So, welcome everyone to this effective writing workshop. It's great to see so many familiar faces um, from this year. We hope that this is a useful workshop as you prepare for your final submission. You've put so much work around this design challenge into your ideas, and this is a great opportunity to think about how am I going to take this and put it into a really impactful, engaging report that effectively communicates my design, the impact of my design. Um, so, what we have the honor of having Maryam Naqvi with us, who took part in a previous design challenge and who has kindly come back to share her perspectives, both from taking part and since then in research and working in yeah, educational content creation. So we're delighted to have Maryam. We will be hearing from Maryam. We'll have see some examples, some top tips of effective writing. There'll be two informal activities to help us reflect a little bit more, and also a Q&A with Maryam, just once we've started to think about this. So do make the most of Maryam being here, thinking about your submission, what you're concerned about. If you've got any questions, she would be happy to help you out there. Mariam will then jump off the call and we'll go into a final activity. But at this point, I will pass over. Mariam, welcome. Few things. Where are you joining from today? How are you doing today?
Hello, hi. I am joining from Taiwan today, which is lovely. Um, and it's really exciting to be back for this. I had such an amazing time working on the Efficiency of Access Design Challenge, and I'm really excited for all of you to be working on it and sharing the the things I learnt along the way. Yeah.
Awesome. And since well, let's hear a little bit about your design before we jump into what you've done since then. We've got the title here. Speaking of effective writing, effective communication, elevator pitch. Why, what was so fantastic? What did you see as the real potential of your design?
So we were working on off-grid electric pressure cookers in sub-Saharan Africa. So what we looked at was cooking techniques in sub-Saharan Africa and what is being cooked there, how long it takes, how many people get together to eat, so what the social structures are like. And we found that the fuel that is used is not always the greatest for your health. It impacts in terms of pollution as well for the environment. And the cooking process can take a very long time. So we thought, how do we make this more efficient? And we came up with an electric pressure cooker, but we wanted to make it off grid so that it can work in remote settings as well. So we teamed up with this company, this startup at the time called Bbox, and we designed our pressure cooker to integrate with existing solar panels from Bbox. And we came up with various different sizes and solutions depending on the setting and the kind of way that you would cook. So whether it be just for your family or maybe like a larger community-based setting. And yeah, that was our design.
Fantastic. And just as a um, reflecting on this already, what we ask for in this design challenge is not just here is our final design and isn't it great? But actually, Mariam just provided an excellent example of how we want to see that journey that you know you what you've been considering, why this is relevant for the community, that their perspective has been considered, that practically it could be built. In this case, they actually honed in on a specific company and said this will be compatible with something that's being implemented right now. So yeah, top marks for that already, Mariam. Since then, what have you been involved in since graduating?
So I am a structural engineer by background. I did this challenge, Efficiency for Access Design Challenge, as part of my master's degree at UCL, where I was studying engineering for international development. So then after graduation, I got involved in a little bit of development work, worked with another charity called EFOD, which is Engineers for Overseas Development. Went to Uganda and did some construction work there, which was a great learning experience. And then I actually got a job with Engineers Without Borders and worked on more design challenges, most recently the Engineering for People Design Challenge. And currently, I am working as a researcher, or rather a PhD student at Imperial, and I'm looking at palm oil agriculture in Indonesia, where I am living.
Fantastic. So lots of experience since the challenge on um, effectively communicating things, whether that's actual design work or um, educational materials for students, and now in your PhD. So um, yeah, this is why we're so happy you're here. And we we're gonna start. So Mariam's shared a couple um, of discussion points and uh, a few things that she has found useful. And to start us off, um, and have a think, everyone on the call, and get ready to add something um, into the chat box. But how would you describe good writing? There's no, this is completely open. We've got some examples on screen, which I'll show in a second, but we just want to start this off getting you to think, how would you describe good writing? Give you 30 seconds and then we'll go on to the next slide. As soon as you're ready, add it into Zoom. Excellent. Rachel's added it in there as well. So a few ideas for you. We've got concise, well structured, interesting, consistent, clear, star quality. What do we have in the any in the chat box? If you're not sure, just take in what's on screen at the moment, because it's really important as you're thinking about your report. Is how do we want to write this? We we're going to have different reviewers looking at this submission, and they may have a few reports they're going to be reading. So how do we make ours really stand out? Um, yeah, Joanna talks about being logical. That is very, very powerful. If there's just a very logical flow um, to your design. So keep those coming in, keep thinking, and as a team, just be making sure you're on the same page in terms of what you are, um, yeah, how you're going to go about this, that you're in agreement of this consistency, this logic, um, this readability that you need to have. Now, a big part of today will be thinking about actually how we start the final submission. Seems like a nice time in the year to be thinking about that. And we've got a couple of opening moves to think about, and maybe you have in your mind that this report must be very very serious and regimented, and of course, then it will need to be rigorous. It will need to be clear, well structured. But we also we are dealing with um, appliances that are impacting people and changing lives, hopefully. And so opening with something powerful, something to really capture how your vision for this appliance is really powerful. So, Mariam, I'll pass over to you just to talk through some of these um, and generally how you go about thinking about starting something like this.
Yeah, I think starting a piece of work or a report can feel really daunting at the beginning. But I think of it almost like storytelling. You've done this like great project, and you want to really describe the process and take the reader on your journey, essentially, of what you've done. And it might be that things haven't gone as planned, or you've had to like change stuff along the way. It would probably be an iterative process. Um, so I think don't be afraid to talk about that, to like talk about the failures and the kind of wins of your work, because it's a journey and the reader wants to see that. Always, I think, think about the reader as well. And I think, yeah, sometimes we can be a little bit fearful of trying to write in a fun and interesting way, because we want to be so precise and exact, which are very important in engineering. But you also allowed to have fun with it and a little bit of joy, and be expressive. I think that's why we've put these kind of opening moves on the screen, because it kind of shows your personality a little bit, kind of grabs the reader's attention. Remember that the reader might be reading a lot of these reports in one go as well. So you have to think about that as well. And then what Tom said about considering people. In engineering, we can focus a lot on the technical aspects, which is important, but ultimately, what we're doing and what we're designing is for human beings. It should make people's lives easier and better. Um, so I think it's really important to see that reflected in your work. And then like practical things, like if you have authors and books that you like reading, or reports, what are they doing? Are they humorous or interesting in their work? Mix up your sentence lengths. Don't have multiple really long sentences in one go, because that can be quite exhausting to read. But yeah, I think most importantly, just enjoy the process, write, and then can edit and refine as you go.
Fantastic. And again, we welcome throughout this, stick your hand up if you want to contribute, add anything into the chat that you have seen uh, that's been a powerful way to your open a submission like this. Um, but yeah, we've got some things like this that are um, we are in a moment going to get into the more practical and more day to day, but what Mariam shared around sentence length um, is really key, and just putting yourself in the shoes. We'll keep saying it, but in the shoes of the reader, what do they want to see? Um, and a more subtle one, which we'll move on to now, is actually around um, verbs and nouns. We won't stay on this for too long, but um, Mariam, how would you? Uh, is this something that you've slipped into? What do you think is the biggest benefit of um, keeping to yeah, avoiding the turning verbs into nouns?
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones that I have definitely noticed that it's very easy to do. And it just adds a lot more words to your sentence and makes it kind of more difficult to read. So if we're looking at commit versus commitment, the team committed to the game is very simple. Um, and then the team demonstrated commitment to the game. We've added extra things that we don't need here. The team committed to the game is simple. Sometimes I think when we're trying to sound technical, we add more words when we don't need to. And one thing that I was taught in engineering is just to step back and think, how can we make this more concise? So just have a look at the two comparative sentences and see what sounds a little bit better to you. Um, and what's easier to read. And yeah, I think the takeaway would be avoid turning verbs into nouns.
That's just an easy thing you can always have in the back of your mind, especially if you're getting to the point where you're reaching the word limit, and you can quickly go through and do this without having to cut, whole blocks of your report that is sharing invaluable things. So that's general tip number one. Number two, active versus passive. Again, over to you, Mariam, in terms of how you have um, value you've seen here.
Yeah, so this is another one where you can make your writing a little bit more impactful or interesting from the beginning. So I think in a way with academic writing, we tend to sometimes fall into the trap of sticking with a passive tone, perhaps because it sounds a little bit more neutral. So, for instance, the first example is it was found that there was a correlation between I have read this sentence so many times. But just saying simply research has found a correlation between is so much more interesting and it's precise because you're adding more information with actually less words. So the second one, 10 different wines were sampled by the participants. The participants sampled 10 different wines. Like it just makes what you're saying a little bit more direct, impactful, and interesting. So have a read of your writing and try and avoid using passive tone and make it more active.
Fantastic. So we've already had, this broader questions around how do you start a submission, a report, a piece of text, but also some very practical things here. So we've had avoid turning verbs into nouns. It just saves on space. It's more direct. Similarly, um, you're getting more out of it by being active rather than passive. So you'll this is being recorded, so you can go back and have a look. But these are just some small things that can kind of spread through your whole report and add up to quite a lot of space saving and a much more direct, engaging report for people to read. So this will be an activity we'll just do in the room. You may need to open up another tab or just think back, in your memory if you're not able to access it. But we're just going to reflect on your concept note, um, which does have a lot of questions that that provide is in some senses it was quite practical. We're asking you what direction you're going in the design challenge, but also there was chances to ask, how is this going to impact um, the people, the communities, whether it's a business or in the home. So this is a good chance for you to maybe just scan through that and ask a few questions. What is my perspective or opinion on this topic, and am I communicating that, and what techniques were you using, and yeah, were you able to start creating a voice in this space. And just yeah, we'll open up for any responses in a moment, but this is just for a couple minutes. We you almost the concept is a great chance for you to reflect on your design, but also it can say, okay, we've already had a chance to start writing something. Are we happy with the way we're communicating? Um, what can we do differently for the final submission? Um, so we'll just give it 2 or 3 minutes on that. While you're doing that, also be thinking about questions for Maryam, um, that you have this rare opportunity. So when we come back, we'll have a bit of feedback. Um, I'll be looking through some concept notes as well. I'll share some of my thoughts, and then we'll hear from Mariam. So 2 or 3 minutes looking through your concept note, just reflecting on the way it was written, and there are some questions on screen that you can be reflecting on as well. Yeah, we'll just spend 1 more minute. You can also have a look through CrowdSolve yourself and see the project summaries, um, and just compare the way different teams have uh, effectively communicated through that. Okay, fantastic. So, does anybody want to unmute themselves and just share a little bit about their reflections, um, or you can add in the Zoom chat on your writing, um, what you might want to do differently in the future. Feel free to jump in or raise your hand. You can also add into the Zoom chat. But while you're thinking, um, a few reflections that I've had um, are that there is a lot of technical componentry involved. Um, and what I'm noticing in some of these is that is what is the, for example, in the project summary that the the summary starts with, and it immediately slightly overwhelms me, and I get a little bit lost in what, okay, there's a lot of interesting things happening here, but what is it achieving? Um, Two that I really was impressed by that resonated with me was um, there's one on an irrigation system, and the first line is that this system makes watering crops easy without needing electricity at night. Boom, it's there. Um, it just provides a very concise um, explanation of what this is doing, why it's beneficial. One that goes a bit further, there's a ventilation system um, which talks about many small businesses operate in spaces that get overheated. And there it is again. It's I see what the problem is, and it just provides that deeper reasoning, not just here's something and it's technical and um, we've done a fantastic job of bringing all these things together. It's bringing that human component in. So unless there are any anyone who'd like to contribute further, I will just encourage you to keep looking through, keep thinking, being inspired by other projects and how they have communicated this. Um, and we'll just turn back um, to Maryam. And before you before you head off, um, does anyone have any questions for Maryam? I have a few questions, which I will ask in a moment, but really do encourage people to make the most of this moment. If your connection isn't good,
Actually,
yes, Rudo, hi.
I'm good, and you?
Yes,
So
really.
actually, I wanna appreciate Miss Miriam for the encouragement. Actually, I learned a lot from them. We work on that. They told us that we should be more consistent, and we know that this thing and sometimes it's boring, but you have to keep on working hard. That's what I learned. I really appreciate that. Did you hear me?
It was not too clear. I'm not sure if it was just me. Uh,
Okay, actually, I was saying that I want to thank Miriam for the discussion. We learned a lot. Actually, they told us to be more courageous and to be consistent, even if sometimes it gets boring, and then you need to keep on working hard to achieve your common goal. So I just wanna appreciate for that insightful discussion.
Thank you, Rudo. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, Rita. Yeah, me too.
And I think I would love to hear, um, again, please, anytime anyone has a question, put your hand up. Love to hear from you. Um, while people are thinking, Mariam, what would you, while you're a very humble person, but it is really helpful to know, um, what do you think were some of the factors that helped your team achieve a gold medal?
I think we worked really well together as a team. At the end, there were three of us um, who did the final submission, and we all knew our roles and responsibilities really well, and we were very passionate. But I think more practically, we came across things that didn't work. So in our first design, we realized that for a family unit of, say, five, if we designed this electric pressure cooker that works with an existing solar panel, it's going to be more expensive than the coal that people are already buying. And that practically, it's not reasonable if if people already struggling to afford basic necessities, to suggest a more expensive alternative option. And we changed directions a little bit and thought about making the pressure cooker bigger and incorporating a few family units, because we realized that actually, in this particular area where we were looking, and we did a lot of interviews locally, that is actually how people were cooking. So that's a practical solution. And during our report writing, we explained this process, and I think that helped with the judges because they could see that we were keeping the people in mind and not being afraid to change directions a little bit as well, and also thinking practically about whether our solution could really be implemented.
Excellent. And thinking back to the final months, weeks, days of writing that submission, can you recall, was it a group contribution where people were writing different parts? Was information being shared with one person who was writing everything? Um, before you leave, that would be helpful to know. Um,
Yes,
if yeah, how it
definitely.
worked for you as a team.
Yeah, so as I said, I had a really good. There were three of us, and we were really keen to write, all of us. So we each had a section that we'd assigned ourselves as what was most interesting to us. So for one, for instance, it was the social aspects. Somebody else really enjoyed the technical. Somebody was talking about the historic background as well. So between us, we'd assigned sections of the report. But what we did, which I think is really important, is we proofread each other's work multiple times because it's really good to have a different eye on your work. And sometimes you can't spot where you're saying maybe too much and not being concise, but other people can. So we allowed ourselves plenty of time to read and comment on each other's work. And we weren't afraid to have constructive criticism for each other's work. And that way, we actually managed to learn a lot from each other. And we found that with each iteration, our report got better. And I think there were like 6, 7 iterations by the time it came to submitting the report.
Wow, what a gem to finish with there. Um, you know, it sometimes can be tempting to just try and cram in as much design and detail and then just write the report right at the end. But actually having that time to iterate on the report itself clearly was hugely valuable to Maryam's team. Um, so that's a really strong point to finish on with Maryam. Um, I want to echo the thanks from Rudo. So thank you so much for coming. I know you've got a busy schedule, but it's been really great to hear from you. Um, and yeah, if anyone else has any questions, I'm sure we can. We're in regular touch, so I can try I can get some questions over to you. But for now, we'll say goodbye to Mariam. I'll explain the next activity in a moment, but a round of applause for Mariam. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Good luck, everybody. Looking forward to seeing all your amazing reports and designs. Take care. I'll be off now. Bye, Tom, Rachel as well. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Bye.
Maryam. Thanks.
Great. So we will now, as we are all inspired, um, we're going to start to we're going to take the leap. Some of you may have already started your report. Well done if you have. Um, but we're going to just zoom in on how to start your final submission, and just use this time to play around a little bit, start to brainstorm what how you could start, what options you have, and we'll go out into breakout rooms wherever possible. We'll try and sort of group you up with maybe someone from your own team and someone from another team, but start the call by just introducing the breakout by just introducing yourselves, and maybe saying how you're doing with your report, um, and then discuss your ideas. Think about how you can make this first sentence as engaging as possible, and share feedback, provide feedback with each other on on that first draft. This is all just verbal. You can just share it, what you're thinking, and then people can respond. But we'll just spend 5 or 6 minutes in breakouts discussing this. I will just drop um, the activity into the chat, which I'll need to do just by stopping my share screen. And I will just paste this in. So yeah, this is a open time, but make the most of it. You've got a chance to get different perspectives, and make sure that hopefully that sometimes the first sentence is the hardest, and once you've got that down, then the rest really flies. So there's the activity in the chat. Rachel, if you're happy to open the breakout. Great, welcome back. I certainly had some interesting conversations. I'm sorry that I think a number of people aren't able to unmute, but um, we'll we'll do some feedback for a minute or so. Um, I heard, I appreciated quite an open, honest response, which is that one student's just not feeling very confident about how to start this. Um, as a reminder, we spoke about these opening moves. So even if you're not sure, okay, what's the first section of my report? At least you can start to think about, how do I want this first sentence to go? And am I maybe highlighting the huge challenge that people are facing right now and telling a very powerful story of that? Am I imagining a world where my appliance is having an impact and what that looks like? How can you really capture the the audience? And then you can start to consider and worry about how you weave in all the different areas. But just think about that first sentence for now, and how you can be very impactful and show that your your idea is feasible, is impactful. Um, would anyone else like to share um, their ideas, um, what they discussed? Please unmute yourself when you're ready. Andrew, I would love to hear a little bit more. Um, I know you were discussing some ideas. If you're happy to unmute um, Andrew from Team 9, it'd be great to hear some of the ideas that you had. Are you okay to unmute? You're welcome
All
to
right.
add it into the chat. But hi, Andrew.
Hi, all right. I think really an engaging opening statement. One, you can really get a real life experience that maybe one of your team members has gone through, and then how you really get passionate about maybe addressing such kind of a challenge, using your idea, and how this idea of yours will be able to impact the entire community that may be facing the same challenge. Yeah, that can really be one of the opening sentences that can really help you. You maybe need also to quote some good statistics that help to back up your statement. Yeah.
Mm. We have two really great points there. Thinking about personal experience, that's very, very powerful, very compelling. And then also having a really powerful um, bit of data um, that highlights the extent of a problem is another way of really capturing people's attention, their imagination, um, as well. So thank you, Andrew, for those. Um, let's just finish with I wanted to just make a point around the fact that while you are thinking about this and the writing of your report, it is really important. There is a balance here of making sure that um, there is real substance. What you're communicating um, is impactful, is well thought through. So I did want to take this moment just to share uh, a little activity that links to Engineers Without Borders UK's competency compass. So this is a framework that highlights a lot of the competencies, or what we see as the key competencies needed to be a globally responsible engineer. And the sound reasoning is the the point that I just wanted to make around just ensuring that as you go through um, your design process, that you're making sound choices similar to the point I think Joella made around logical. You have a logical process. You are considering the right things at the right time. So as you're kind of balancing the content, so the effective writing, also be thinking about, okay, how are we considering um, the right areas? Are we, um, yeah, are we, do we have sound reasoning throughout this process that really makes someone reading this convinced that, wow, this team know what they're talking about and have considered all the different aspects. So there's a link there for that exercise. It's looking at impact assessment and how you're really connecting your idea to uh, the social impact that can be seen. So that's just one example of, okay, how can we make sure that we have the style and the substance within our designs? Great. I will leave it there. If there's any questions, feel free to stay on. Thank you so much for joining. Please um, do submit there's a feedback survey that Rachel's just added. So please submit that now, and we will see you in the next session. Rachel, is there anything else to cover?
I'm just going to put the link to the terms and conditions in the chat, but I'm pretty sure everyone here has already signed them. So if you haven't, please do that now. But I think you all have. But yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback. It really, really helps us improve and make the challenge better for you all, we hope. Yeah, thanks for being here.
Excellent. And yeah, just keep reflecting on this, rewatch this, share this with any teammates, um, especially the points that Maryam made around getting this report done early and proofreading it, sharing it with team members, each section. Lots of great ideas in there. Um, so yeah, we will leave it there. Best of luck. We're always here if you have any questions, and we look forward to seeing your final submissions in the coming months.